The microphone hissed as I stepped up. Pink balloons brushed my shoulder. Everyone stared at me, the mom who had driven all night and all morning, the mom who had been told to sit down and stay quiet. I held up my phone, tapped one button, and the speakers filled with my son's voice. "Hey everyone," Evan's voice said, sharp and cold. "If my mom shows up, she is not allowed near the child. Don't let her hold him. Don't let her touch anything. She's trouble. Keep her away." The paper plates froze in midair. A plastic fork clinked to the floor. I swallowed hard and spoke into the mic. "This is my gift," I said. "It's not a stroller. It's the truth." On the screen behind me, photos began to play. Pictures of Evan at 6, missing teeth and smiling with his first baseball glove. Evan at 12, blowing out candles I saved up to buy. Evan at 18, cap and gown, my hand on his shoulder. Then bank records I had printed. Rent I covered last winter, the down payment I helped with, the hospital bill I paid when he got hurt. Every slide had dates. Every slide was proof. Evan's face turned red. Sierra's face went white. Her mother, Trina, stood up so fast her chair fell back with a bang. The room buzzed, then went quiet again like it was holding its breath. I looked at my son. "You told them I am not allowed near my own grandchild," I said. "Say why, Evan. Say it to my face." He opened his mouth. Before he could speak, Sierra's hand flew to her belly. Her eyes went wide. "My water," she whispered. It just broke." The room erupted. I live in a little yellow house at the edge of a wheat field in Kansas. In the morning, the birds chatter like they have secrets. In the evening, the wind moves the tall grass like a big green ocean. That is my normal world. The smell of coffee, the sound of the old screen door, the same two hands, mine, doing the work that must be done. I raised my son, Evan, in this house. It was not fancy, but it was steady. I made pancakes on Saturdays and wrote notes in his lunch bag on Mondays. I worked at a grocery store bakery for 16 years. I came home with flour on my arms and icing in my hair. And I still had enough tired love to help with homework and find lost socks. We were a team, even when money was thin and the truck needed a new belt and the roof leaked in spring. When Evan left for Texas at 19. Bigger chances, Mom. The house felt too quiet. I kept his room neat and pretended he would walk in any day. He didn't, but he called on Sundays. Then Sundays became every other Sunday. Then it was texts. Short ones. Busy was his favorite word. I told myself that was normal. Kids grow. Lives change. You teach them to ride the bike and then you watch them pedal away. The week the world cracked open started soft and easy, like a slice of warm bread. I was cleaning the porch when my phone buzzed. It was a group text with a pink confetti background. "Baby shower for Sierra. June 15th, 2 p.m. Austin Meadow Hall. Games, food, fun." My chest fluttered. Baby. My first grandchild. I read the text 3 times to make sure it was real. I scrolled up and saw names. Sierra, I had met her twice, both times quick. Her friends, her mother Trina, some cousins, neighbors. Far down the list, my name. I didn't care that it was low. I was in. I pressed the screen to type. "I'll be there. I'll bring the diaper cake I make at the bakery. You'll love it." Before I could hit send, another text came in. This one was just for me. It was from Evan. "Mom, don't come." My fingers stopped moving. I stared at the words. They didn't make sense. The porch, the birds, the wheat. They all seemed to shift sideways. I typed back. "Is this a joke?" He answered. "Not a joke. It's better if you don't. Sierra wants it small. Trina thinks it'll be drama if you show. I don't want stress. Please." My heart pinched. I felt like I had stepped into a hole and couldn't see the bottom. Called him. He didn't pick up. Called again. Voicemail. I walked inside, sat at the kitchen table, and listened to the hum of the fridge. That's when the central mystery slipped into my life and set itself down like an unwanted guest. Why didn't my son want me near his child? What had I done that was so bad? Who was saying I was trouble? I tried to breathe slow. I wrote a message. "I am your mother. I am not drama. I won't make a scene. I just want to celebrate. I'll sit in the back if that helps. He wrote back fast this time. Mom, please. Don't come. I mean it. I put my hands flat on the table. I stared at my knuckles. They looked like small hills. I felt something rise inside me. Sadness, yes, but also something firm and steady, like a fence post hammered deep. I had not missed his games. I had worked nights to pay his braces. I had sold my only gold necklace to help with his first car. I had held him through fever and heartbreak. If there was a story being told about me that said I was trouble, I needed to know who wrote it and why. I texted once more. Call me tonight. He didn't. That night, I stood in Evan's old room. The posters were gone, but the nail holes still made tiny dots in the wall, little stars that remembered a different sky. I opened the closet and found a shoebox labeled stuff. Inside, ticket stubs, a keychain, a photo strip of me and him making silly faces. I held the photo strip and cried in that quiet, private way you do when no one is there to pat your back. The next morning I made a decision. Felt like stepping off a porch into cold grass. It woke me up all at once. I would go. I would drive the 12 hours to Austin. I would not cause a scene. I would sit, watch, and try to understand. If they still pushed me out, I would at least know I tried. And if someone was spreading lies about me, I would look that person in the eye. I would hear the lie in their voice. I would ask myself what truth I needed to bring to the light. I called my neighbor, Mrs. Avery, to water my plants while I was away. I packed a cooler with sandwiches, apples, and a thermos of coffee. I baked the diaper cake at the bakery after my shift, rolling tiny socks like cream swirls and tying them with ribbon. I added a gift card I had saved for $200. I tucked a small stuffed bear into the center. It stitched smile brave and ready. Before I left, I walked the wheat field and let the wind comb my hair. Help me stay calm, I said to the sky. Help me be kind and strong. The drive was long and lonely. I followed the line of the road like a thread pulled tight. The radio played old songs. The sky changed from blue to orange to black. I stopped for gas and stretched my back and ate a half sandwich when the moon was high. As I got closer to Texas, I felt a mix of hope and dread, like two dogs pulling in different directions inside my chest. Around dawn, my phone buzzed. Voicemail. It was Evan. I held my breath and pressed play. Mom, he said, voice low like he was hiding in a closet. If you show up, do not try to hold the baby when he's born. Don't touch anything. I told people not to let you near. I'm serious. You always make things about you. Don't ruin this. I gripped the wheel so hard my fingers hurt. The road blurred for a second. I pulled over at the next rest stop and sat very still. I listened to the message again. The words "not allowed near the child" felt heavy and strange. It was like someone had put a fence around a place in my heart and hung a sign. Keep out. Why would he say that? I am not perfect. I've raised my voice. I've made mistakes. But I am not a danger. I am not a storm that breaks things. I am a person who shows up with plates and napkins and a smile that holds even when it trembles. I sat there until the sun shook itself awake. Then I drove the last miles into Austin with a new feeling building in me. It was the feeling you get when someone takes your name and smears it and you decide to take it back. I didn't know how yet, but I would not let a lie live without a fight. Austin Meadow Hall was dressed in pink and gold when I arrived. A sign said, "Welcome baby Blake Carter," in big bubbly letters. People milled around with cups of punch. Laughter floated in the air like balloons. I parked 2 blocks away so my Kansas plates wouldn't stand out. I sat in the truck, smoothed my dress, and told myself again, calm and kind. No scenes. It's open. Ears open. Heart guarded but not closed. I carried the diaper cake in both hands and walked through the double doors. Heads turned. Not all at once, but in a wave like wind moving through tall grass. Some smiles. Some frowns. Sierra was at the far table, glowing and tired. Evan stood near her, hands in his pockets, bouncing on his heels like he always did when he was nervous. Trina, in a crisp coral suit, was arranging tiny sandwiches like soldiers. Sierra saw me first. Her eyes flicked to Evan, then to Trina. She smiled a small, polite smile that did not reach her eyes. "Hi, Marianne," she said. "Thanks for coming." I set the diaper cake down. My hand shook a little. "It's for you," I said. "I made it at the bakery." Evan did not hug me. He did not reach for my hand. He looked everywhere but at me. "We're busy," he muttered, and walked to the other side of the room. Trina stepped close. Her perfume was sharp and sweet, like a flower that almost hurts your nose. She tilted her head and smiled with her teeth. "We sent a message," she said softly. "I told Evan it's better if you keep some space. We have a lot of family here. We don't need complications." There it was, the word that had been floating around me like a bee. Trouble, drama, complication, different masks for the same face. I could feel the room watching. I could feel my pulse in my throat. "I am here to celebrate my grandchild," I said, keeping my voice even. "That is all." Trina's smile thinned. "Well," she said, "please sit over there." She pointed to a small table in the corner by the trash can. Had a view of a wall. Carried my plate there. Took a breath. The less extreme thing to do, the thing that would keep the peace, was to sit, smile, eat a sandwich and leave early. So I did that. I watched the games. People wrapped toilet paper around Sierra's belly to guess the size. They laughed at the silly onesies. I clapped when they cut the cake. But even as I sat still, the mystery kept turning like a tiny machine. Why was Trina so sure I was a problem? What had she told people? Where did the story start? Halfway through the gifts I heard it. Not loud, not meant for me, but the words drifted across the room and found me anyway. Trina was speaking to a group of women near the punch bowl. "She left him alone for hours when he was a kid," Trina said, shaking her head. "Can you imagine? A boy that age. It's not safe to let someone like that near a baby." Cold feeling ran through me. That was not true. When Evan was 10, I worked the late shift, yes. He sat in the bakery office with his homework. Mrs. Avery watched him the one time I had to close alone. I never left him alone for hours. Not once. But here it was, the story in the wild, growing legs. Then I heard something worse. It came from Evan himself, talking to his friend near the door. "She drinks," Evan said, rolling his eyes. "She'll make a scene. I told everyone to keep her away. Sierra doesn't need that stress. I do not drink. I haven't touched a drop since my sister's wedding 15 years ago when we danced too hard and I fell on my rear and we laughed until we cried. One clumsy night had somehow become a label. A lie had put on real clothes and walked into this room. Heat spread through me. It was not the kind that burns and destroys. It was the kind that melts a hard thing and lets you shape it new. I saw something then. It was small, but it was enough. A path forward, a way to answer a lie with light. I didn't know the whole plan, but I knew the first step. There was a microphone on a stand by the gifts. The DJ had set it up for speeches later. Next to it sat the big screen TV the hall rented for slideshows. Trina had connected her laptop to run baby pictures of Sierra and Evan. The cords snaked across the floor like gray vines. Pulled out my phone. Opened my photo folder. I had been keeping things for years. Pictures, notes, little proofs of a life done with love. I had bank statements in a separate app. I had a voicemail saved from last winter when Evan called me after I paid his ER bill. "You saved me, Mom. I don't deserve you." I had a message he sent me just last week asking for help with his car. "Please don't tell Sierra." Understood. My chair scraped the floor. I picked up the diaper cake and carried it to the gift table. I set it down gently, as if it were made of glass and hope. Then I walked to the DJ. "Excuse me," I said, calm and kind. "Could you help me play something from my phone when it's time for speeches? It's a little slideshow for the baby. No big deal." He shrugged. "Sure, ma'am. Airplay codes on the screen." He nodded. My hands stopped shaking. The path felt more solid. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to throw cake. I was going to tell the truth, plain and simple, and let it sit in the light. The speeches began. Trina went first, All bright smiles and careful words. "Family is everything," she said. "We protect the baby by protecting the space." People clap. Sierra's friend told a funny story about a spilled milkshake and a fast car. More claps. Evan took the mic. He thanked everyone for coming. He did not thank me. He never looked my way. The DJ nodded to me. "You're up, Grandma," he whispered. I walked forward. My feet felt heavy and brave at the same time. Took the mic. The room softened at the edges like a picture with too much light. I pulled up the saved voicemail, then the photos, then the bank statements to tap in order when it was time. That was the moment before the storm. Before the revenge that wasn't about hurting, but about fixing the shape of the story. Breathed in. I opened my mouth to speak. Across the room, Trina saw the slideshow menu blink onto the TV. Her face changed. She started toward me, fast and stiff, like a person trying not to run. I lifted the mic. "Hello," I said. "I'm Marianne. I drove 12 hours to be here today." The crowd hushed. Every head turned. Evan's jaw clenched. Sierra's hands folded over her belly. "I brought a gift," I said. "It's not a stroller. It's the truth." I pressed play on Evan's voicemail from the night before. His words filled the room. "If my mom shows up, she is not allowed near the child." People gasped. Trina stopped moving. Evan's eyes went wide. I tapped to the next slide. Pictures. Bank records. The little photo strip of silly faces. The thanks he sent me last winter. "You saved me, Mom." The air went tight like it was going to snap. Then, from the center of it all, Sierra gasped and grabbed Evan's arm. A dark circle spread on the front of her dress. "My water," she whispered, eyes bright with shock and fear. "It just broke." Panic flared. Chairs scraped. Someone yelled to call 911. Evan looked from Sierra to me, lost and angry and scared all at once. And as people rushed, as the room turned from party to emergency, Trina pointed at me with a shaking hand and shouted, "This is your fault." The whole hall snapped its gaze to me, waiting to see if I would run, cry, or fight. I tightened my grip on the mic, my heart pounding like a drum in the wheat wind, and I decided in that breath what I would do next. When a voice behind me said, "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the screen." The voice was deep and polite but firm. Turned. A young man in a navy blazer, someone from the event staff, stood behind me. His hand hovered near my elbow, like he was ready to guide me away. His eyes didn't hold anger, only the kind of careful control people use when things are already tense. "Please," he said. "Just step back. They need space." The room was chaos. Two women helped Sierra toward the door, her dress clinging where the water had spread. Someone was shouting about towels. Evan moved like a man caught in two different storms, half running to Sierra, half glaring at me. His lips moved, but I couldn't hear the words over the shuffle of feet and the crash of a chair tipping over. Trina stood in the middle of it all, a general in bright coral, pointing at me like I was the enemy who'd breached the gates. "This is exactly what I warned you about," she barked. "She brings drama wherever she goes. Look what's happened." A woman near the gift table whispered to the person beside her. I didn't need to hear to know it wasn't kind. My skin burned hot and cold at the same time. I wanted to shout the truth. I wanted to say, her water breaking has nothing to do with me. But I'd already learned in life that the louder you try to defend yourself in a room that's been told you're guilty, the more you sound exactly like what they think you are. So I did the hardest thing, I stayed still. I took one step back from the mic, then another. My slideshow froze on the bank statement with my name next to a $1,000 payment to Austin Regional Medical Center. The truth was still up there, glowing for all to see, even if no one was looking right now. "Ma'am," the staffer said again, "you can wait outside." I nodded slowly. "Fine." I set the mic back on the stand. My hands were steady now, steadier than they'd been all morning. I walked past Trina without looking at her, and through the side exit. Outside, the Texas sun slapped me full in the face. The air was thick and hot, humming with cicadas. I found a patch of shade by the corner of the hall and sat on the low brick edge of a flower bed. My dress stuck to my back. My throat felt like it was full of dry sand. Through the open door, I could hear muffled voices. A car engine started. Probably someone rushing Sierra to the hospital. Then the voices blurred into the sound of the air conditioning kicking in and the cicadas calling. It was quiet enough to think. And that was when I realized something. This wasn't just about the baby shower. This wasn't just about being pushed to the edge of the room. Trina had been planting seeds for months. Maybe years. The lie about me, leaving Evan alone for hours. The lie about me drinking. Those things didn't just appear yesterday. They had roots. And roots meant there was a whole tangled history under the surface. I pulled my phone out and opened my text messages with Evan. Scrolled far back. I saw all the little requests he'd sent me over the last 2 years. Money for rent, help with the car, a place to crash if things with Sierra ever blew up. And in between, little gaps where he'd gone silent. Those silent weeks. What had Trina been saying then? Who else had heard her version of me? I didn't have all the answers, but I knew this. If I let this moment be the end of the story, the lies would become the truth in everyone's mind. And once that happened, I might as well be a stranger to my own son's child. I stayed outside for nearly half an hour before the hall doors opened again. People began filtering out, some holding gift bags, others chatting like nothing serious had happened. A few gave me side glances. A couple smiled politely, the kind you give a neighbor you don't really know. Then Evan came out. He spotted me instantly. His jaw tightened. "What are you still doing here?" he asked. His voice was low but sharp. "You've done enough." Understood. "I came here to celebrate my grandchild. Instead, I was told not to even hold him when he's born. Do you have any idea what that feels like, Evan?" He didn't answer right away. He rubbed the back of his neck, the way he used to do when I'd catch him lying about homework. "This isn't about feelings, Mom," he said finally. "This is about what's best for the baby. And you think that means cutting me out?" He shrugged, but it was stiff, forced. "You've always made things harder." There it was again, that vague, slippery accusation with no proof. The same line Trina had probably fed him. I stepped closer. "If I've made things harder, tell me how. Give me one real example. Not what someone else told you. What you know." His eyes flickered just for a second. And that flicker told me what I needed to know. He didn't have one. He shook his head. "I don't want to argue. Sierra's at the hospital now. I need to be there. Just go home." And with that he walked away. No hug. No promise to call. I stood in the parking lot long after his car had disappeared. The sun slid lower, painting the blacktop in orange light. And somewhere in the heat and hurt, my sadness hardened into something sharper. I wasn't going home. Not yet. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized. If Trina had worked this hard to paint me as a danger, she must have a reason. And that reason might be the key to undoing her lies. But finding it meant going deeper. Into their lives. Into their secrets. Even if I had to step into places I wasn't welcome. That night I checked into a cheap motel off the highway. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in slow, lazy circles. My phone buzzed. A news alert about a storm moving through central Texas tomorrow. I smiled faintly. But storms had a way of shaking things loose. I picked up my phone and opened social media. And right there, in Sierra's public baby shower album, I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. Tag. A name I recognized. And a photo that made my heart stop. It wasn't of Sierra or Evan. It was of Trina. And she was standing next to a man I knew all too well. My ex-husband. Evan's father. The man who had vanished from our lives 15 years ago. I sat up so fast the motel bed squeaked. The photo filled my phone screen. Trina in that same coral smile she wore today. Standing shoulder to shoulder with a tall, broad man whose face I would know anywhere. Mark Carter. My ex-husband. Evan's father. The caption read, "Family dinner, so grateful for the people who matter most." Family. The word hit me like a fist. Mark had walked out on us when Evan was 12. One morning I woke to find his side of the closet empty, his favorite leather jacket gone, and the Ford parked in the driveway missing. He left no note, no call, no nothing. Just a joint bank account with a balance of $43.76. For years, Evan barely spoke of him. The few times I asked, my boy's eyes would turn hard and he'd say, "I don't care." But now here he was, in a photo with Trina, smiling like he hadn't gutted our family. I stared at the picture until the edges blurred. My pulse pounded in my ears. The timing hit me. Mark and Trina knew each other now. That explained everything. Trina didn't hate me for who I was. She hated me because I was in the way. If Mark was back in Evan's life through her, then pushing me out wasn't just about the baby. It was about erasing me altogether. I leaned back against the headboard, my mind racing. Pieces started falling into place. The lies about me drinking. Mark had told that same story when we split, claiming I couldn't handle stress without a glass in hand. I'd heard it from a mutual friend. Back then I thought it was just his excuse for leaving. The leaving Evan alone story. That was his favorite knife to twist when he didn't want to pay for a sitter. He'd say I was careless, that I should have been home more, ignoring the fact that I was working to feed us. If Trina had gotten those lies straight from him, then she'd had a head start poisoning Evan against me. But that still left a question. Why now? Why come after me with this much force, right before the baby arrived? I didn't sleep much. Around 4 a.m. I got up, splashed water on my face, and made a decision. If they wanted me out of the picture, I needed to show Evan the real picture. And the only way to do that was to dig up what Trina and Mark didn't want him to know. That meant finding Mark. By 7 a.m., I was sitting in the corner booth of a diner 2 blocks from the hospital. A plate of eggs cooled in front of me while I scrolled through public records on my phone. I searched for Mark Carter in Texas. A handful of results popped up, but one address made my stomach twist. Austin city limits, less than 20 minutes from Sierra's mother's house. The same address had Trina's name listed too. They weren't just friends. They were living together. I paid for my untouched breakfast and drove past the address. It was a pale blue ranch-style home with a neat yard and a silver truck in the driveway. Curtains in the front window twitched as I passed. Someone was watching. I didn't stop. Not yet. I needed to plan. If I charged in now, they'd slam the door in my face and twist it into, "Look how unstable she is." Instead, I parked 2 streets over, inside of the driveway, and waited. An hour later, the silver truck pulled out. Mark was behind the wheel. Lone. Followed at a safe distance. He drove to a strip mall, parked outside a pawn shop, and went inside carrying a guitar case. 10 minutes later, he came out without it and with a wad of cash in his hand. I took pictures from my phone. Then I followed him again, this time to a liquor store, where he bought 2 large bottles and stuffed them into a paper bag. The pieces started forming a shape I knew too well. If Mark was drinking and pawning things, it wouldn't be long before the truth leaked out. The trick was making sure Evan saw it before Trina could spin it. That night, back at the motel, I laid everything out on the bed. The photo of Trina and Mark. The address record tying them together. The pictures of Mark pawning the guitar and leaving the liquor store. It wasn't enough to break through years of lies, but it was a start. Still, something felt unfinished. Like there was a deeper reason Trina wanted me gone. I needed one more piece of proof, something so clear it couldn't be ignored. That's when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but I think you should know what Trina's been saying about you. Call me." The number had a 512 area code, Austin. I stared at it for a long second, my heart thudding. This could be the lead I needed. Or it could be a trap. Either way, I knew I was going to call. I stepped outside into the humid night, thumb hovering over the dial button. I could hear the faint roar of the highway in the distance. I pressed call. A woman's voice answered on the second ring. "Mary Ann, we need to talk. And you need to hear this in person." There was a pause and then she added, "It's about the baby, and why they really don't want you near him. The line went dead. I stood in the motel parking lot, phone still warm in my hand, staring at the blank screen where the call had ended. The night air felt thick, like it was pressing against my skin. A stranger, a warning, and a promise of answers. I glanced around, scanning the darkened lot for movement. Just a flicker of a moth near the buzzing street lamp. Still, my gut told me this was dangerous ground. People like Trina and Mark didn't just sit back when someone started poking holes in their story. They pushed back hard. But if this woman had something real, I couldn't ignore it. Called the number back. Straight to voicemail. The recording was short. Leave a message. No name, no hint of who she was. I didn't leave one. If she wanted to meet in person, she'd call again. Until then, I needed to be ready. The next morning, I skipped the motel coffee and drove to the hospital. I wasn't planning on forcing my way into Sierra's room. I just wanted to know if the baby had been born, and more importantly, who was there. From the parking lot, I saw Evan's car, Trina's SUV, and the silver truck, Mark's. That confirmed it. He was fully inside their circle now. My stomach knotted at the thought of him holding my grandchild before I could even lay eyes on him. I waited, watching the sliding glass doors. After 20 minutes, Trina came out, phone to her ear. Her voice carried just enough for me to catch a fragment. We'll keep her away. Evan agrees. Not safe. Not safe. That phrase again, like they'd printed it on a banner and were waving it over my head. She spotted me across the lot and froze. For a beat, we just stared at each other. Then her face tightened, and she ducked into the SUV. Tires squealed as she left. Back at the motel, I paced. My phone finally buzzed around noon. Meet me at the cafe on 6th and Olive. 1 hour. Sit at the back booth. Don't tell anyone. No name, but I didn't need one. I grabbed my bag and left. The cafe was small and dim, the kind of place where every seat has a view of the door. I slid into the back booth, ordered tea, and waited. 5 minutes later, a woman in her late 40s walked in. Short dark hair, plain jeans, eyes that flicked around the room before settling on me. She came over and slid into the seat opposite mine. "You're Marianne," she said quietly. "I'm Dana. I used to work with Trina. And I know Mark." Her tone was flat, but her hands trembled slightly as she wrapped them around her coffee cup. Kept my voice low. "Why did you call me?" "Because you're being set up," she said. "And it's worse than you think." I leaned forward. "Go on." She took a breath. "Mark's broke. Has been for a while. He owes money to people you don't want knocking on your door." "Trina." "Well, she's in deep with him. They've been together for about a year, but they've been careful to keep it quiet from Evan until recently." "That much I figured," I said. "But what does that have to do with me and the baby?" Dana's gaze sharpened. "They need control over Evan. Over his life, his choices. And the baby is the perfect way to get it. Trina's been feeding him stories about you, so he'll cut you off. That way you can't warn him or help him when Mark starts pulling money out of him." I sat back, my pulse hammering. Why not just lie about me being unreliable? Yes. Why make it so extreme? Not allowed near the child. "Because," Dana said slowly, "they want it to stick in people's minds. If they make you sound dangerous, no one will question it when you're gone from the picture completely. And if something happens, say you cause a scene or get arrested, they'll have the proof they need to make the ban permanent." Her words sank like stones into my chest. This wasn't just about hurt feelings. This was a calculated removal. "Why are you telling me this?" "Yes." Dana's jaw tightened. "Because I watched Trina do the same thing to her own sister 10 years ago. She cut her off from her niece. Spread lies until everyone believed them. By the time the truth came out, it didn't matter. The damage was done." She slid a manila envelope across the table. "This is everything I have. Texts, emails, even a couple of voicemails. You'll see exactly what she's been saying. But be careful. If they find out you have this, they'll come for you." I took the envelope. It felt heavier than it should have. As Dana stood to leave, she paused. One more thing. Trina's planning something for tomorrow night. I don't know what, but it involves Evan, the baby, and Mark's old friends. If you want to stop her, that's your window. Then she was gone, leaving her coffee half finished. I sat there for a long time, the envelope in my lap, my tea gone cold. I knew opening it would change everything. I knew once I had proof, I couldn't just walk away. Finally, I slipped a hand inside. The first page was a printed email from Trina to Mark, dated 2 months ago. The subject line read, "Plan for after the birth." The first sentence made my blood run cold. Once Marianne is out of the way, we can move forward without interference. I sat in my car outside the cafe, gripping that email like it was a live wire. The words blurred in front of me. Once Marianne is out of the way. It wasn't just proof, it was a roadmap. They had been planning this for months. Every lie, every whisper, every sideways glance at the baby shower part of a bigger picture. And now, with Dana's warning about tomorrow night, I had less than 24 hours to figure out what that plan was, and stop it. Back at the motel, I spread the rest of the envelope contents on the bed. Screenshots of texts. Trina to Mark complaining about me meddling and trying to control Evan. Voicemails. Trina telling someone, maybe her sister, that the baby will never be near that woman. A photo of Mark and Trina meeting a man outside what looked like a rundown bar, with cash passing between them. Each piece added weight to the sinking feeling in my gut. But one screenshot in particular caught my eye. It was a message from Mark to Trina just last week. "Evan's soft. He'll do whatever we say if he thinks it's for the baby. Tomorrow night seals it." That was it. The tomorrow night Dana had mentioned. But what did it mean? I thought about going straight to Evan, shoving the proof in his face, demanding he open his eyes. But I already knew how that would go. Trina had spent months, maybe years, building her wall of lies. One emotional confrontation would just make me look like exactly what she'd been painting me as. Unstable, dramatic, dangerous. Well, I needed Evan to see it for himself. Not just the papers in my hand, but the truth happening right in front of him. That meant I needed to be there tomorrow night. I had no idea where there was until my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mark Carter. You still in town? Maybe we should talk. Tonight. Back entrance of the hospital parking garage. 10 p.m. Come alone." I stared at the screen. This could be a trap. It could also be the crack in their armor I needed. At 9:45 p.m., I was standing in the shadow of a concrete pillar at the hospital's parking garage. The air smelled faintly of oil and rain. Storms were moving in. Mark stepped out from between 2 parked cars. His hair more gray than I remembered, but his smirk exactly the same. He kept his hands in his pockets, like he didn't need them to hold any kind of weapon. "You look good, Marianne," he said. "Considering." I ignored the jab. "What do you want?" He glanced around, then stepped closer. "I hear you've been asking questions. Following me. Talking to people you shouldn't." "I've been trying to see my son and my grandchild," I said. "And I'm wondering why you're suddenly part of their lives again." He chuckled. "Family's important. Family's important to you now?" "Yes." "Funny, since you left yours with $43 in the bank." His smile tightened. "Let's not go over old history. Here's the thing, you don't belong here anymore. Evan's got people who can help him. People who aren't complicated." There it was again, that word Trina had used. "And tomorrow night," said. "What's that about?" His eyes narrowed. "You don't need to know. But if you're smart, you'll be on the highway heading back to Kansas before then." Before I could answer, movement caught my eye. Someone was coming down the ramp. It was Evan. He froze when he saw us. His gaze bounced between Mark and me, confusion and suspicion wrestling in his expression. "What's going on?" Evan asked. Mark recovered first. "Just catching up with your mom," he said casually. I opened my mouth to speak, to tell him the truth, but Mark's look was sharp enough to slice through my resolve. If I pushed now, Evan would believe him, not me. So I swallowed it. "Just catching up," I echoed. Evan nodded slowly, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. That was something, a small crack. The next morning I decided to use that crack. I left a plain envelope in Evan's mailbox. No note, just a single screenshot from the email. Once Marianne is out of the way, we can move forward without interference. I figured it was just enough to make him start asking his own questions. But I underestimated Trina. By noon my phone rang. Unknown number. Answered. It was her. "You think you're clever," she said, her voice syrupy and cold at the same time. "Leaving things in my son's mailbox. Here's a little tip. Keep it up and you'll never see that baby. Not in the hospital. Not in pictures. Not ever. You'll be nothing but a ghost." Then she hung up. I sat there staring at my phone. My first move had backfired. Trina knew I had proof now. And if Dana was right about tomorrow night, I just put myself right in her crosshairs. The storm outside was rolling in, the wind picking up, rattling the motel window. It felt like the whole city was holding its breath. And in that heavy silence, I made myself a promise. If tomorrow night was the night they were going to seal it, then I would be there, watching, recording, ready to blow their plan apart. Even if it meant walking straight into whatever trap they'd set. The storm hit early. By 6 p.m., Austin was soaked. Rain slapped the motel's tin awning, and thunder rolled low like a warning drum. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching water streak down the window, waiting for my phone to buzz with some clue about where tomorrow night was going to happen. Nothing yet. The silence was heavy. I kept the manila envelope on the bed beside me like a loaded weapon, flipping through the pages again and again. Trina's emails, Mark's texts, the photo of them passing cash to that man outside the bar. I was looking for anything I'd missed. That's when I spotted it. In one of the screenshots, Trina had sent Mark an address. No explanation, just, "Be here at 8 tomorrow night. Evan will bring the baby. It'll be quick." The address wasn't the hospital. It wasn't their house. It was somewhere I didn't recognize. Copied it into my phone. A Google search told me it was an industrial lot on the far edge of the city. Storage units, a mechanic's garage, and a bar with a flickering neon sign. Not the kind of place you bring a newborn. My gut tightened. I left the motel at 7:15, the rain still pounding. I parked a block away from the lot and killed the headlights. The area was quiet except for the hiss of rain on the pavement. At 7:55, a silver truck pulled in Mark's. 2 minutes later, Trina's SUV. And then, Evan's car. My pulse jumped. Even through the rain-blurred glass, I could see Sierra in the passenger seat, holding something swaddled in a blanket. They all got out. Trina was talking fast, pointing toward one of the storage units. Mark unlocked it with a key, rolled up the door, and waved them inside. I couldn't see much from where I sat, just shadows and shapes, but I could feel it in my bones. This wasn't just a friendly visit. I pulled out my phone and started recording. After 5 minutes, another car pulled in, a black sedan with tinted windows. 2 men got out, both in dark jackets. One carried a small duffel bag. The other had something that looked like paperwork. They went inside. The storage door closed. Rain hammered harder. My wipers squeaked when I flicked them on to clear the windshield, and I ducked lower in the seat, afraid the movement would catch someone's eye. Minutes dragged by. At one point, I saw the door lift a few feet, just enough for one of the men to step out and light a cigarette. His face was thin, sharp, the kind that doesn't forget grudges. He looked around, and for a second I thought his gaze landed on my car. My heart thudded. But then he turned back inside. I wanted to get closer. Every instinct screamed that something about that meeting was wrong, that if I didn't act, I'd lose my chance to protect my place in my grandchild's life. I slipped out of my car, pulling my hood low against the rain, and crept along the fence toward the storage unit row. The sound of water hitting metal covered my footsteps. I reached the side of the unit they'd gone into. A thin strip of light bled out through a gap where the wall met the ground. I crouched, angled my phone, and hit record again. I couldn't see much, just shadows, but the voices came through clear enough. Trina. She's gone after tonight. No more interruptions. Mark. And Evan will sign. He won't even question it. He thinks it's for the baby's future. Unknown man. Good. We get the transfer, you get your cut. Everybody's happy. Transfer. This wasn't just about keeping me away. They were using Evan and the baby for some kind of deal. I shifted to get the phone closer, but my elbow brushed a loose piece of chain hanging from the fence. It clinked loud against the rain. Inside, chairs scraped. A step. The door rattled. I backed up fast, but I wasn't quick enough. The door rolled up and Mark stepped out, his eyes locking on me through the downpour. "Well, well," he said, voice carrying even over the storm. "Looks like the ghost came to haunt us." Trina appeared behind him, her face twisting when she saw me. "Grab her," she snapped. Two men moved toward me. Ran. My shoes splashed through puddles as I bolted for my car. I could hear them shouting, the heavy thud of footsteps gaining ground. I yanked my door open, dove inside, and hit the lock button just as one of them grabbed the handle. Rain-slick hands banged against the window. Mark's face was inches from the glass, his mouth moving in words I couldn't hear. I jammed the car into gear and tore out of the lot, tires spitting water. My hands shook so hard I almost missed the turn back to the highway. I drove until the lights of the city blurred behind me, pulling into a gas station on the edge of town. I sat there, engine running, heart slamming in my chest. I still had the recording, the voices, the words transfer and cut. Proof of something. But they'd seen me. They knew I had it. And if Dana was right, they'd do whatever it took to shut me up before that proof got to Evan. I stared at the rain running down the windshield and realized something chilling. I wasn't just fighting to keep my place in my grandchild's life anymore. I was fighting to keep myself alive. I didn't drive back to the motel. That would be the first place they'd look. Instead, I parked behind an all-night laundromat on the east side of town, the hum of dryers and smell of detergent bleeding through the thin walls. I sat there, replaying the recording again and again, making sure the storm hadn't drowned out the words. It was still there, Trina's voice sharp and certain. "She's gone after tonight. No more interruptions." Mark's reply. "Evan will sign. He won't even question it. He thinks it's for the baby's future." And then the stranger's voice about the transfer and the cut. The problem was, without context, Evan could still be convinced it was nothing, some innocent paperwork for a trust fund or an exaggerated joke. No, if I was going to break through Trina's wall, I needed him to see it happen. I needed to put him in the same room as the truth, before they knew he was watching. "Called Dana." She answered on the second ring, voice tense. "You okay?" "No," I said. "They saw me. They know I've got proof." "Then you've only got one shot. Make it count." I told her my idea. Dangerous, messy, but maybe the only way left. When I finished, she let out a low whistle. "That's risky, Marianne. If it goes wrong." "It won't," I cut in, though my stomach knotted at my own certainty. "I'll need your help to get Evan there without tipping them off." By morning, the storm had passed, leaving the streets washed clean and the air heavy with humidity. I stayed hidden until the afternoon, then drove to the hospital where Evan was visiting Sierra and the baby. I caught him in the hallway, coffee cup in hand. His eyes were wary, but softer than they'd been in days. Maybe the birth had thawed something in him. "Evan," I said quietly, "I know you think I'm making trouble, but there's something you need to hear. Something about tonight." He frowned. "What about tonight?" I shook my head. "If I tell you now, you'll think I'm lying. But if you trust me just for an hour, come with me at 8. No Trina, no Mark. Just us. Please." He hesitated, glancing toward Sierra's room. "If this is another stunt." "It's not," I said. "It's the truth. And after you see it, if you still want me gone, I'll leave and never come back." That last part hurt to say, but it was the hook he needed. After a long moment, he nodded once. 8 o'clock. 1 hour. That's it. At 7:50, I was parked a block from the same industrial lot. Dana in the passenger seat. She'd agreed to keep watch from outside while I got Evan into place. Evan arrived on foot, hands shoved in his jacket pockets. "This better be good," he muttered. I led him through a side path along the fence to the same gap where I'd recorded them before. The lot was quieter tonight. No rain to cover our movements, but the unit's light spilled faintly into the dark. I crouched low, motioning for him to do the same, and angled my phone so he could see the screen. I pressed play on last night's recording. He listened, his face unreadable, until the stranger's voice said, "We get the transfer, you get your cut. Everybody's happy." "That's Mark," Evan said slowly. "And that's Trina." "Keep watching," I whispered. Inside, the voices were live now, drifting out through the same gap. "Trina, it's all here. Once you sign, the account moves in our name. You'll still have access, but Marianne won't be able to touch anything. Not for the baby, not for you. Mark, we keep her out and you're safe." The stranger, "Once this is done, we're clear." Evan's head snapped toward me, eyes wide. "Account? What account?" "That's why I brought you," I said. "They're using the baby as leverage to get your signature. Once you give it, they can drain whatever's in there, and you'll never get it back." Before he could answer, the storage door rolled up halfway. Trina stepped out with a clipboard in hand, scanning the lot. Her gaze swept past our hiding place, then stopped. "Evan," she called sharply. "Is that you?" He froze. My pulse roared in my ears. Mark appeared beside her, face tightening as he spotted me crouched next to Evan. "Well, isn't this cozy?" he said. "Bringing the boy to spy on us. Bad move, Marianne." The stranger inside said something I couldn't catch, and Mark's smile went cold. "Bring them in." Two large men stepped forward from the shadows. Evan backed up a step. "Mom, what's happening?" I grabbed his arm. "Run." We bolted along the fence, boots pounding gravel, shouts chasing us. The gap to the street was just ahead when one of the men's hands brushed Evan's jacket. I shoved hard, breaking the grip, and we stumbled into the open road where Dana's car screeched to a stop beside us. "Get in," she yelled. We dove in, doors slamming as Dana floored it, the lot shrinking in the rearview mirror. Evan sat silent for a long moment, breathing hard. Then he turned to me, eyes dark with realization. "They were going to cut you out and clean me out." He nodded. "Now you see why I couldn't just go home." He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "We have to stop them." It was the first time in weeks we'd been on the same side. And it meant that tonight, finally, was the night we'd fight back. But Trina and Mark had already proven they'd play dirty. And the next move might be theirs. We didn't have time to overthink it. Trina and Mark had already shown their hand. Tonight they'd finish the job if we didn't beat them to it. Evan sat in the motel chair, rubbing his temples. "If I confront them, they'll just deny it. They're too good at twisting things. That's why we don't confront them in private," I said. "We do it where they can't rewrite it later. Somewhere public, with people who matter to them. And with proof." Dana leaned against the wall. "And I know just the place. Sierra's parents are throwing a welcome home gathering tomorrow for the baby. Half the people who believe Trina's lies will be there." Perfect. We spent the next day setting the trap. I backed up the recording and Dana's envelope onto 3 different flash drives. Evan pulled up his online banking and found exactly what Trina had been pushing him to sign. Paperwork that would give Mark co-ownership of his savings account, the one his late grandmother had set up for him. $48,000 in it. If that money vanished, Evan wouldn't just be broke. He'd be trapped, dependent on them. We agreed. At the party, we'd let Trina and Mark start their speech about protecting the baby, then play the recording in front of everyone. The lies would unravel in real time. The next evening, we arrived together. That alone made heads turn, Evan and me walking side by side after weeks of tension. Trina was across the room in a floral dress, her smile freezing when she saw us. "Well," she said, gliding over. "What a surprise." Mark hovered behind her, arms crossed. Evan kept his tone neutral. We're here to celebrate my son. Thought you'd be okay with that. Of course, she said, but her eyes were sharp. When the time came for speeches, Trina stepped up first. She launched into a syrupy talk about keeping family strong and making choices that protect the little one from chaos. That was my cue. I nodded at Dana, who was already at the laptop hooked to the hall's big screen. Before Trina could finish, the speakers crackled. Then her own voice filled the room. She's gone after tonight. No more interruptions. Evan will sign. He won't even question it. He thinks it's for the baby's future. We get the transfer, you get your cut. Everybody's happy. Gasps erupted. Heads swiveled toward her and Mark. Someone muttered, "What the hell?" Evan stepped forward, holding up the printed bank forms. "These are the papers you wanted me to sign." They would have given Mark full access to my savings. This isn't about protecting my child. It's about stealing from me. Trina's mouth opened and closed. "That's not what." Dana spoke up from the back. "I used to work with her. I've seen her do this before. Spread lies, cut people out, take what she wants. Don't let her spin it." Mark swore under his breath and started for the door, but two of Evan's friends stepped into his path. "Not so fast," one said. "Police are on the way." It all unraveled quickly after that. Sierra, pale and trembling, demanded her mother tell the truth. Trina sputtered, denied, then finally went silent when Evan said, "If you keep talking, I'll press charges for fraud." The baby stirred in Sierra's arms. She looked at me across the room, and for the first time, her eyes weren't cold. They were apologetic. "Do you want to hold him?" she asked quietly. My throat closed. I crossed the room and took my grandson into my arms, his tiny fingers curling around mine. The police arrived and took statements. Mark tried to bluster, but the recording and documents were enough to get them both escorted out for questioning. By the time the party wound down, the air felt lighter. People who'd avoided me at the shower came over to apologize, some looking embarrassed. Evan hugged me at the door. "I should have listened sooner," he said. "I let them turn me against you." I shook my head. "You saw it when you needed to. That's what matters." Back in Kansas a week later, the wheat field was starting to turn gold. I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, scrolling through a new photo Evan had sent, a picture of him, Sierra, and the baby at home. No Trina. No Mark. Just family. There was still a long road ahead to rebuild trust, but the lies had been dragged into the light. And sometimes that's all you can do. Make sure the truth is louder than the whispers. As for Trina and Mark, they'd learn the hard way that when you try to erase someone from their own family, you'd better be ready for them to write themselves back in. And I'd just written my chapter in ink.